Hello, I'm Andy Wilson, the Sneakonomist, and we've had a very busy week full of earnings, mergers and acquisitions, and other bits of news that I'm going to very quickly recap in a moment. Before I do though, if you want to keep up to date with all the latest news coming out of the business world of sneakers and athleisure, make sure that you are subscribing and your notifications are switched on the Sneakonomist. And if you want this content as well as other roundtable discussions with other people from within the community, make sure that you are subscribed to @FullFrameKicks, and you're also on that YouTube channel, Full Frame Kicks, with the notifications on. So I'm going to start off with earnings. Now, COVID last year meant that there were two main themes. One theme was we're stuck indoors, we need to make sure we can keep ourselves occupied and comfortable and try and keep our mental state in the right place. The other theme was that people were wanting to go out for walks and exercise when they were allowed to. So it wasn't a huge surprise when we saw Deckers this week record revenues of almost $1.1 billion, and that's a record revenue number for them for the third quarter. The shares rose 8% this week. You may not be aware of Deckers, but you will know a couple of the brands they own. So UGG is one of their brands. Obviously, it's about staying at home. It's about comfy shoes and slippers, etc. Their Q3 sales rose by 12% year on year. And the other one was HOKA One, where people are going out and exercising, and we've seen the likes of HOKA as well as On Running have done particularly well, as some of these niche smaller brands, people like the story behind it and actually quite like using them when they're going out exercising. HOKA One saw their Q3 sales rise by a whopping 52%. The DTC part of their business, which is direct to consumer, that's them selling through their own stores when they're open, as well as their online platform, those sales rose 34% for the quarter. Now, they did talk a bit about supply chain disruptions. They talked about social distancing within the warehouses, which were causing a bit of a problem. Production facilities as well were having to run with reduced amounts of staff. And there was also restrictions around travel and through borders. Now, I did do a piece on this at the beginning of this week, a few days ago, talking about the cost of freight increasing, moving products over from Asia, and I have done some other bits and pieces on supply chain disruption, so please do go back and check those out. So as I say, that's Deckers, the parent company. Their shares rose 8% this week. Columbia, a name that you will no doubt associate with outdoor wear. They also own Mountain Hardwear as well. Now, their shares rose 20% this week. And it was mainly, they did release earnings. It was mainly about their forecast sales growth, or their guidance of where they think the sales will grow. Consensus was looking for a 13% increase going forward on their sales, but the company have hinted it's going to be closer between 18 and 20%. Their DTC and e-commerce has risen by 41%. And they're talking about a sequential recovery in bricks and mortar. They're not saying it's going to get back to where it was, but it's showing a sequential improvement. I'm going to go on to eBay now, and there's a reason why I'm mentioning eBay. Now, eBay shares are up 9% on the week. They said that holiday sales, so that's that quarter running into the end of the year, holiday sales rose 32% for that period versus the same period last year. They attributed this strength mostly to watches and sneakers. They launched their authentication service last year. The sneakers part of that saw triple-digit growth over the period. Now, you can only use this authentication service on the .com platform. So within the US, it's only on Yeezy and Jordan brands at the moment, and they need to be new shoes and over $100 in price. Obviously, Stockx, they did a fresh round of fundraising towards the end of last year. I seem to recall it's got their market value to somewhere in the region of about $3 billion. Now, eBay is, their market cap, I think, is in the region of about $42 billion. So I'm not comparing the two at all, because obviously eBay has a lot more going on than Stockx. But what I would highlight is that Stockx do need to be careful with regards to how they are charging people, their pricing, and making sure they're staying right on top of this authentication, because if eBay start to steal a charge and start eating into their market share, the barrier to entry for eBay to come in and start taking business away from Stockx is actually relatively low. I love the way Stockx that you can search through very, very easily, picking your size, etc. And it's very, very different search way to you see on eBay. But just watch this space, because eBay with this authentication system might start to eat into some of their market share. Remember, the pricing on Stockx is only as good as the amount of people that are using it. So if you want, the more people that are using it, the more accurate your pricing will be. I'm going to go on to a little bit of mergers and acquisitions now. JD Sports, if you tuned into my stuff at the beginning of the week, you know that they launched a bid for Downtown Locker Room, or DTLR. They paid $495 million for that. They had hinted previously that they may look to raise money from shareholders for future acquisitions. The DTLR acquisition they made was using existing cash that they had on their balance sheet. But then what happened the following day is they basically asked shareholders for another £465 million and didn't say what they were going to be doing with it. Now, what they're doing is they're rebuilding up that war chest of money to be able to go and take over other businesses. So they say it's for acquisition opportunities to support their global expansion. So we know they've made two recent acquisitions either side of Christmas in the US, one on the West Coast in Shoe Palace and one on the East Coast in Downtown Locker Room. I still think that they may look at doing something in Europe. The money that they're raising, and I think they're going to have about £1 billion on their balance sheet of cash. That's definitely the opportunity to be able to take something chunky over in Europe. They can't do a big chunky UK thing because they bought Foot Asylum and that almost got blocked by the regulators. On to French Connection now. Their shares are up 140% this week. They announced that they've been approached by two separate groups looking to acquire the company. One is Spotlight Brands. They own, amongst other things, Sweaty Betty, and the other one was a company called Go Global. Now, the founder of French Connection is a guy called Stephen Marks. He owns 39% of the business, but Mike Ashley and his Frasers Group owns 25% of French Connection. For me, French Connection's been a dying brand. They absolutely nailed it initially with the FC UK slogan, but that just got very, very old and was massively overhyped and flogged to death, and it's struggled ever since. But a nice payday, at least with the shares rising for Mike Ashley. There's no deal on the table yet. They're in discussions, but watch this space. One other bit with regards to M&A, and it kind of branches into, I'm going to talk a little bit about Nike very, very quickly. A US stockbroker called Citigroup, they raised their recommendation on Nike this week to a buy. And within that note, they claim that Nike could actually look to buy Footlocker. I don't think that's personally going to happen for a number of reasons. Why? I know a large portion of what Footlocker sell is Nike, but I can't imagine that there's going to be any reason why they would want to take over the business and try and capitalize maybe on some of their stores, etc. Because I think that Nike could actually just continue to roll out their own stores. Also, Footlocker are selling other brands as well as Nike. So what would Adidas think about selling shoes through Footlocker if Nike were to own it? So I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. Couple of other bits on Nike. Converse sales, they were up 50% last week. Why is this? Well, it's probably down to Kamala Harris being vice president now and her wearing Chuck Taylor shoes. She wore them while she was campaigning. She wore them on a Vogue cover shoot as well. So there's definitely a little bit of pushing going on there. And lastly, Nike continuing their push on DTC. They have sent letters to 100 Greek sports stores. They're terminating their deal on May the 31st, 2022. As I say, it's this continued push to DTC. They went from 30, they're now pushing to 40 with a medium-term view of getting to 50%. They're going to rely on a small number of strategic partners and also Nike stores and online. That's a quick recap from me. Any questions, please do give me a shout, and I hope you had a good week. Thanks.